Mother, this is my dear good friend, David Copperfield.
How do you do, Mrs. Steerforth?
Mr. Copperfield, I gather you met my son at the coaching inn.
Yes. I've never been more pleased to see anyone in all my life.
Nor I. Do sit down, Daisy.
Are you living in London, Mr. Copperfield?
No, but I plan to very shortly.
He lives at the moment in Canterbury.
Canterbury?
Yes, I've been adopted by an aunt in that part of the country, and I've just finished my education there.
James is what they call an Oxford man. Aren't you, James?
This is Miss Dartle, my companion.
How do you do, Miss Dartle?
Mr. Copperfield.
I fear my son leads a wild life at college.
Oh, really? You know how ignorant I am and that I ask only for information. But isn't that kind of life always so?
It is an education for a very grave profession.
Oh, yes, very true. But isn't it, though? Really?
Really what, Rosa?
Oh, you mean it's not? Well, I'm very pleased to hear it. That's the advantage of asking. I shall never again allow people to speak of wastefulness and profligacy in connection with that kind of life.
It was at Mr. Creakle's, my son informs me, that you first became acquainted.
Yes, Mrs. Steerforth. He was a good friend to me at school. No one could have wished for a better, more generous companion.
My son has always had a noble spirit.
Indeed he has.
Come now, Daisy. Friendship works two ways. You were a good friend to me.
Oh, yes, I recollect you speaking of a pupil younger than himself, but your name has not lived in my memory.
Why does James call you Daisy, Mr. Copperfield? Is it because he thinks you're young and innocent?
Well, yes, I suppose it must be.
And so he is. As fresh as any daisy of the field.
Do you now intend to settle in London?
Not immediately, no. I'm going up to Suffolk tomorrow to see some friends.
I didn't know you had friends in Suffolk.
It's my old nurse's brother, Dan Peggotty. He's a fisherman.
You're going all the way to Suffolk to see a fisherman?
Oh, he's a remarkable character, Miss Dartle. I used to spend holidays with him when I was a boy. He and his family live in a boat.
Got it moored somewhere, has he?
No, it's actually on dry land. A house made out of a boat.
How very peculiar.
I think it sounds fun. I wish I were going with you.
Well, why don't you? Why not? They'd be delighted to meet you, I'm sure.
What do you think, Mother? Should I go?
You must do as you wish, James. It's entirely up to you.
In that case, I think I might. Yes. Why not? It'd be a pleasure to spend a few days with that sort of people.
Oh, really? Do tell me, are they, though?
Are they what?
Are they that sort of people? Are they really animals and clods and beings of another order?
Well, I dare say there's a pretty wide separation between them and us. They're not expected to be as sensitive as we are. The delicacy is not to be shocked or hurt easily. Oh, they're virtuous in their way, but not easily wounded.
Really? Well, I'm pleased to hear that. It's so consoling. It's such a relief to know that when they suffer, they don't feel. You know, sometimes I've been quite worried about that sort of people. But now I shall just dismiss the idea of them altogether. Live and learn, Mr. Copperfield. It just goes to show the advantage of asking, don't it?
That's a most remarkable scar on Miss Dartle's lip.
My handiwork, Daisy. I did it.
You?
When I was a boy, she exasperated me one day, so I threw a hammer at her. Promising young angel I must have been. She's borne the mark ever since. She'll bear it to her grave, if she ever rests in one.
Yes, sir?
Is Mr. Barkis at home, ma'am?
Oh, he's at home, sir, but he's bad abed with the rheumatics.
Don't you go over to Blunderston now?
When he's well, he do.
Do you ever go there, Mrs. Barkis?
Well, sometimes I do, so why?
I want to ask a question about a house there called the... What is it? The Rookery. Peggotty, don't you recognize me?
My darling boy, Davy. Oh, my Davy. Oh, fancy me not not recognising you after all these years.
Well, it's 7 years, Peggotty.
Yes, look at you all grown up and handsome.
Oh. And you're the same dearest, Peggotty. Oh, how glad I am to see you.
My precious boy.
I'm sorry about Mr. Barkis. I'd no idea he wasn't well.
Oh, if you come up and see him, my dear, it'll do him more good than all the pints of liniment. On up there. Barkis, my dear, you'll never guess who called. Come on in. It's Master David.
Hello, Mr. Barkis.
Can't shake hands if you'll excuse me, sir. The rheumatics won't allow it. Shake this, though, if you would, sir.
With pleasure, Mr. Barkis.
We had some good talks when you was at school, sir. You remember?
And some grave talks, Mr. Barkis.
Aye, sir, so we did. I was willing a long time.
A very long time, Mr. Barkis.
And I don't regret it, sir, not a bit. Do you remember what you told me once about her making all the apple pasties and doing all the cooking?
Very well, Mr. Barkis.
It was as true as turnips is. It was as true as taxes is. And nothing's truer than them.
Oh, no, nothing, Mr. Barkis.
Nothing's truer than taxes. A man as poor as I am finds that out in his mind when he's laid up. And I'm a very poor man, sir.
I'm sorry to hear it, Mr. Barkis.
A very poor man. Indeed I am. Old clothes.
Oh.
I wish it was money, sir, but it ain't. She's the usefulest and best of women, is C.P. Barkis. All the praise that can be given to C.P. Barkis, she deserves and more. My dear, you'll cook a dinner today for company? Something good to eat and drink, will you?
Of course I will, Barkis.
No, Peggotty, I can't stay.
You can't stay.
I'm here with a friend, a Mr. Steerforth. We've got rooms at the hotel.
Well, he can spare you for dinner, can't he?
I've a trifle of money about me somewhere, Mr. Davy.
I promised I'd take him to see the boat. He's dying to see it. I can come back another day for dinner before I leave.
Well, you see you do.
So that's it. Wild kind of a place, Daisy. The sea roars as though it were hungry for us. I forgot to ask you. Are they expecting you?
No, I thought I'd take them by surprise.
Yes, of course. Far more fun to see the natives in their aboriginal condition. Come on, Daisy.
Oh, my house ain't much for the sea, Mr. Steerforth, but it's our tea at your service. Oh, come along that fire, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Peggotty. Much obliged.
As I used to say to Master Davy, you'll find us rough, but you'll find us ready.
Indeed you did, Mr. Peggotty.
Master Davy!
My dear Ham. And little Emily, too.
Ain't she grown, Master Davy? Ain't she the prettiest young woman you ever did see?
Indeed she is. Emily. Emily, this is my old school friend, James Steerforth.
How do you do, sir?
You're as beautiful as they said, Miss Emily. More so.
See her blushing, Zenny. See her blush there.
You late, old man. Where you been?
We've been out walking, the two of us.
Out walking, eh?
The truth is, this is to be my little wife.
It's true, Uncle, if you please.
If I please. If I please me, Lord, if I should do anything else.
I'll be as good a wife as I can to him, for he's a dear, good fellow.
If this ain't the brightest day of my life, I'm a shellfish and boiled too, and more I can't say.
You're a lucky man, Ham. I couldn't be more delighted.
Thank you, sir. He lost his hat to her years ago, Mr. Steerforth. He followed her about. He lost his relish for his victuals.
Oh, I can well believe it.
I told him to speak to her, but he wouldn't. He's big enough, as you can see, but he's bashfuler than a little un.
I always knew she'd grow up to be like a flower.
A rose, Ham.
Aye, sir. I'd lay down my life for her. She's more to me gentleman, and... Well, she's all to me that ever I can want, and more than ever I could say. I love her true. There ain't a gentleman in all the land, nor yet sailing upon all the sea, that can love his lady more than I love her. Though there's many a common man would say better. What he meant.
If I please.
Mr. Peggotty, you're a thoroughly good fellow and deserve to be glad as you are tonight. My hand on it.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Ham, I give you great happiness. My hand on that, too.
If I please. No more we're making after this, Ma.
My dear Miss Emily, I wish you all the joy and delight in this world.
Where'd you put them glasses?
Most engaging little beauty.
Yes. I never saw people so happy.
Rather a chuckle-headed sort of fellow for the girl, isn't he?
You can joke about them, Steerforth, but I know you better. I could see you love those good people as much as I do. I admire you and love you for it.
Daisy, you're an earnest, good soul. I wish we all were.
Mr. Steerforth and Uncle Dan seem to be getting real friends.
Daisy,
I'm sorry, Steerforth. Did I startle you?
you came upon me like the reproachful ghost.
Have I called you down from the stars?
No, not from the stars.
Oh, you're thinking of something.
I was looking at pictures in the fire. I detest this mongrel time. Neither day nor night. You're late. Where have you been?
Blunderston. See my mother's old house. Cottage where I was born and lived as a child. It's so different now it's empty. I can't believe it's the same place.
Crumbling to dust, is it?
It soon will.
All things change, Daisy. I was thinking just before you came in. All those people we found to be so glad on the night of our coming down here might, to judge from the present wasted air of the place, be dead, or dispersed, or come to I don't know what sort of harm. I wish to God, Daisy, I had had a judicious father these past 20 years.
Well, what's the matter?
I wish with all my soul I had been better guided. I wish I could guide myself better. It'd be better to be poor Mr. Peggotty, or his lout of a nephew, than myself 20 times richer and 20 times wiser.
What do you mean?
At least they don't know the torment I've been to myself in this devil's bark of a boat.
What torment, Steerforth?
Nothing, Daisy. Nothing. I'm heavy company for myself sometimes. What old women call the horrors have been creeping over me of late. I'm afraid of myself, Daisy.
You're afraid of nothing else.
No. No, perhaps not. It's being alone that gives me these nightmares. I bought a boat. Did I tell you?
Oh, what an extraordinary fellow you are, Steerforth. You may never come here again.
Oh, I don't know. I think I might. I've taken quite a fancy to the place. At all events, I bought a boat that was for sale, a clipper, and Mr. Peggotty should be master of her in my absence.
Oh, my dear Steerforth, you pretend to have bought it for yourself, and you've really done so to confer benefit on Mr. Peggotty.
Tush, the less said the better. She's called the Stormy Petrel, though I think I may have her rechristened. After all, what does Dan Peggotty care for Stormy Petrels?
What will you call her?
I thought perhaps the little Emily. Well, why not? It'll please Dan Peggotty and Ham.
Trot, I've had a letter from Mr. Spenlow this morning. He's more than willing that you should be articled to his firm. The rest is up to you.
In what way?
I'm still waiting to hear what you think. Do you approve of the Proctor plan or don't you?
Yes, of course I approve.
Thank you for telling me, Trot. I'm glad you like the idea.
I do, very much. And I talked to Steerforth about it. He was most enthusiastic.
What did Mr. Steerforth say?
He says a proctor is a sort of monkish attorney. Both proctors and advocates get very comfortable fees and altogether make a mighty snug little party. Oh, yes, he recommends it.
Good, that's very cheering.
There is, I'm afraid, one difficulty.
What is that, Trot?
I gather it's an expensive business to enter.
Fairly expensive, yes.
Can you tell me how much?
It will cost £1,000 to article you.
It's a lot of money, Aunt Betsy.
It is, I don't deny it.
I know you've always been the soul of generosity, but sure you can afford to part with so much? I mean, is it right you should?
Trot, my boy, if I have any object in life, it is to provide for your being a good, sensible, and happy man. I am bent upon it. And so is Mr. Dick. Are we not, Mr. Dick?
What?
Mr. Dick, you were not paying attention. I said, are we not bent upon Trot becoming a good, sensible, and happy man?
Oh, yes. Good and sensible and happy, yes.
But Aunt Betsy, you've done so much for me already.
I have things to make up for, Trot. Perhaps I might have been better friends with your poor father and with that poor child, your mother. Anyway, from the time you came to me, a little runaway boy, all dusty and wayworn, you've been a credit to me, and a pride, and a pleasure. I have no other claim upon my means, and you are my adopted child. All I ask, Trot, is that you be a loving child to me, and bear with me whims and me fancies, and you will do more for an old woman whose prime of life was not so happy as it might have been, than ever that old woman did for you.
My dearest Aunt Betsy.
Well, having settled that, I think we deserve a cup of tea. Janet! Drat the girl, where is she? Janet!
Something interesting out there, Mr. Dick?
He's gone.
Who has?
The man who hides near our house and frightens her.
Frightens my aunt.
I thought nothing could have frightened her, for she's the bravest and the wisest of women. I can't understand it.
Tell me about it, Mr. Dick.
Well, the other day I was walking out with her after tea, just at dark, and there he was, hiding near our cottage.
You mean this mysterious stranger?
Yeah.
What was he doing?
Well, he wasn't there at all before he came up behind her and whispered to her. I stood and stared at him, and he walked away.
Extraordinary. What did he whisper to her?
I didn't hear. He's been hiding out there ever since.
Was my aunt very frightened?
All of a shiver. But the question is, Trotwood, why did she give him money? Why did she do that?
Perhaps he's a beggar.
Oh, no, not a beggar, not a beggar. I'm sure of it. Not a...
On my word, I don't know what servant girls are coming to. She was reading a novelette. So taken up with the tale, the first time I addressed her, she didn't hear me. Is there something wrong, Trot?
Mr. Dick says a strange man has been seen around the house.
Strange man?
Yes. Do you know who he is? It appears he frightens you.
I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about.
Trotwood, he's come back. No, he hasn't. It's someone else.
Strikes me Janet isn't the only one who's indulging her imagination.
This will be your office, Copperfield. Desk, as you see. Pens and paper. Books for reference.
Yes, it's most impressive, sir.
Good. I'm glad you like it. Work hard, Copperfield, and you'll find that ours is a genteel and rewarding profession.
Yes, sir, I'm sure it is. Although I feel bound to point out that I know very little about the law and legal matters.
Of course, I understand that. We always, in this house, propose a month, an initiatory month. I should be happy, myself, to propose 2 months, 3, an indefinite period, in fact. But I have a partner, you see, Mr. Jorkins, and he must have his say.
I understand, sir. And the premium, I gather, is £1,000.
The premium, a stamp included, is £1,000. As I told Miss Trotwood, I am actuated by no mercenary considerations. Few men are less so, I believe. But Mr. Jorkins has his opinions on these subjects, and I am bound to respect Mr. Jorkins's opinions.
I suppose, sir, if an article clerk was particularly useful and made himself a perfect master of his profession, it might be possible to allow him some small salary.
Alas, no. I will not say what consideration I might give to this point myself, Copperfield, if I were unfettered. But Mr. Jorkins is, I'm afraid, immovable.
Is it possible, sir? I mean, shall I have the honor of meeting Mr. Jorkins?
My partner has the most retiring disposition, Copperfield. In other words, he keeps himself to himself, retiring and immovable. Well, acquaint yourself with the office, Copperfield. When you're ready, I'll show you round the Doctor's Commons.
Thank you, sir.
The chambers are for the young gentleman, Miss Topfield?
My nephew, yes. He's come to London to study the law and requires a suitable residence.
Oh, I'm sure they'll be most suitable, ma'am. A finer set of rooms you won't find in the whole of London.
This is the last occupant's furniture?
Yes, it is, ma'am.
What became of him?
He was took ill here, ma'am, and died.
Dear me, what did he die of?
He died, ma'am, of drink and smoke.
Smoke? You don't mean chimneys?
Oh, no, ma'am. Pipes and cigars.
Well, that's not catching at any rate. Is that the bedroom?
Yes, it is, ma'am. Let me show you. A quieter room you won't find anywhere.
Ah, yes. Well, Trot, do you like the rooms?
Oh, yes, Aunt Betsy, the very thing.
You provide the linens, I presume, Mrs. Crump?
Yes, ma'am. And I cook.
Yes. Well, Trot, it looks and sounds satisfactory, don't you think?
Oh, yes, first class.
Good. We'll take the rooms, Mrs. Crupp. My nephew will take possession the day after tomorrow.
Oh, thank you, Miss Topfield. Mr. Copperfield.
Mr. Spendler?
No, I'm afraid Mr. Spenlow's in court.
Oh, thank you.
Wait. I've seen you before somewhere. Yes, of course. Tommy Traddles.
David Copperfield!
My dear Traddles, what on earth are you doing here?
Well, I've got these papers for Mr. Spendler.
No, I meant in London.
I'm reading for the bar.
Good, I'm glad to hear it.
Well, it's taking me a long time, I'm afraid. Oh, you know me, a plodding kind of fellow.
Do you have chambers?
I have the fourth of a room and a passage.
What?
Well, 3 others and myself unite to have a set of chambers to look businesslike, and we quarter a clerk, too. £0.50 a week he cost me.
My dear Traddles, I can still see you in that blue suit you used to wear.
Oh, Lord, to be sure. Tight in the arms and tight in the legs. Oh, dear me. Those were happy times, weren't they?
I think Mr. Creakle might have made them happier without doing harm to any of us.
Perhaps. But, dear me, there was a good deal of fun going on.
He was a brute to you, Traddles.
Do you think so? Or perhaps he was, rather. But that's all over now a long while.
Here you are, reading for the bar. My dear Traddles, I'm delighted to see you again. You must come and see me. I've got chambers in the Adelphi.
I'd like that very much.
I'll tell you what. A mutual acquaintance will be visiting me on Thursday. Yes, come to supper. 7 o'clock, Buckingham Street.
Mutual friend, eh? Who can that be?
I'll wait until Thursday, but I can promise you, it'll be quite a celebration.
I'll be there. 7 o'clock. Gentlemen, I give you our dearly beloved headmaster, the mad fiend of Salem, Old Creakle. He wore my ears many a time. Well, as I remember it, it wasn't only your ears. Old Creakle.
Creakle.
Right, let's have another toast. Another one? Come on, Daisy, your turn this time. Who's it going to be?
Wait, all the way together.
All right,
all the
Daisy,
way,
all right.
all the way.
We mustn't frighten the neighbours too much. Come on, who's it going to be? There aren't many people left to be toasted.
Gentlemen, I give you Mr. Creakle's mother.
Oh, Creakle's mother. I doubt the old dog ever had a mother.
Every man has a mother. You, Traddles?
No.
No? Mine's dead, too. I never see her again.
Oh, Lord, he's getting maudlin. Come on, Daisy. Drown this gloomy talk. This is a celebration, remember? You're entering a noble profession, acquiring these splendid rooms. The rooms!
Therefore, you are my guiding star.
Look, I tell you what. We'll sally forth and liven up some tavern. I know just the place.
Oh, don't be silly, Steerforth.
What did you say?
Oh, he's too drunk to go out.
Of course he ain't. Well, you ain't too drunk, are you, Daisy? You want to go out and enjoy yourself some more? Old London's got a lot to offer a man.
A lot to offer a man. Way all away.
He's a mite groggy.
All the way. Hey, wrong way, Copperfield. Oh. Way all away, all the way.
Keep him quiet.
Way all away.
I think you better lie down.
Well, I don't think he's going to die. I say, well, that's going a bit far, isn't it? Reading his post.
Mr. Copperfield is my friend. And that is my cap.
Well, it still doesn't give you the... Shut up. Shut up. Sorry, Steerforth.
Wasn't as if it was confidential. Wasn't even sealed. Just some invitation to a supper party. A fellow called Waterbrook, Peelhouse Chiswick, whoever he may be.
Oh, I say. Well, he's a well-known lawyer.
Oh, is he indeed? Our Daisy is coming on in the world. Well, I hope he doesn't disgrace himself at this party.
No, thank you.
Yes?
Copperfield,
Spender.
you don't drink, eh?
Well, no, sir,
I like a young fellow who can leave it alone. I read your notes on the Lever-Jones appeal. Not bad. Not bad.
I'm glad you approve, sir.
One begins to detect a glimmer of promise in you, Copperfield. It will never become a blazing beacon, but if you apply yourself to the full and with reasonable luck, you might become a, shall we say, modest light in the profession.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. You must come and have dinner at my house sometime.
Thank you, sir. I'd be most honored.
Yes. I'll fix a date and let you know. Ah, Galpage. About the C of B's, or should I say the D of A's.
Trotwood.
Dear Agnes, it's so good to see you again.
Oh, it's good to see you, Trot, and to know you're doing so well.
I've been fortunate in having good friends, none more so than yourself.
Have you spoken to Uriah this evening?
No, I haven't. I was surprised to see him at table. How did he get an invitation?
Oh, Uriah has risen in the world since we last met. In fact, I believe he's about to enter into partnership with Papa.
Uriah? Oh, that's impossible. You must be mistaken, Agnes.
No, I think not.
I think you better tell me about it.
I was intending to, Trot. Well, to begin with, Papa is much changed since you last saw him.
In what way?
His hand trembles. His speech is not plain. I fear the matter has been forced upon him.
Forced upon him? By whom?
By Uriah. He's made himself indispensable to Papa. He's fostered Papa's weaknesses and taken advantage of them until Papa's afraid of him.
I don't understand.
Neither do I, Trot. His ascendancy over Papa is very great. He professes humility, but his position is really one of power, and I fear he makes a hard use of it.
What a loathsome creature he is.
He's very clever, Trot. One time, he told Papa that he was going away because he had better prospects. Well, then the idea of a partnership relieved Papa's mind. Although at the same time, he seemed ashamed of it.
And how did you respond to the idea?
I did what I hoped was right. It seemed necessary for Papa's peace of mind that the sacrifice should be made. I begged him to make it. But now I feel as if I'd been Papa's enemy, not his loving daughter.
Dear sister, I'll find out what's happening. I'll talk to Uriah.
Oh, no, Trot, you mustn't do that. Be friendly to Uriah. Don't make him your enemy.
What is this talk of enemies, Miss Wickfield? I'm sure you don't have an enemy in the world.
It was a private conversation, Uriah. We'd hoped not to be disturbed.
Oh, my humble apologies, Master Copperfield.
I'm sure Uriah didn't mean to annoy you, Trot.
Oh, dear me, no, sir, no. Nothing was further from my mind. We have not exchanged a word all evening, have we? And there is something of importance I would like to discuss with you, Master Copperfield.
Not now, if you'll excuse me. It's late and I'm rather tired.
Oh, but I'm going back to Canterbury tomorrow afternoon.
Some other time, then. Agnes, shall we go?
I will see you later, Uriah.
Of course, Miss Wickfield. Oh, really, Master Copperfield? To see you waiting upon me, that is One way or another, so many things happen to me which I never could have expected in my humble station that it seems to rain blessings on my head. Oh, thank you, sir. Oh, thank you very much. I had to come and talk to you, Master Copperfield.
Yes. I think it's as well you did come. We should have a talk, I think.
Oh, Master Copperfield, it makes my humble heart glad to know you feel that way. You have heard something, I dare say, of a change in my expectations, Master Copperfield. I should say, Mr. Copperfield.
Something, yes.
What prophet you have shown yourself to be, Mr. Copperfield.
Prophet?
Well, don't you remember how you said to me once that perhaps I would become a partner in Mr. Wickfield's business? That it might be Wickfield and Ebe? Oh, you may not recollect it, but when a person is humble, Mr. Copperfield, a person treasures such things up.
I recollect talking about it, though I certainly didn't think it very likely then.
Well, I would have thought it likely, Mr. Copperfield. I'm sure I didn't myself. But the humblest of persons, Mr. Copperfield, may be the instruments of good. Oh, I'm glad to think that I have been the instrument of good to Mr. Wickfield. Oh, what a worthy man he is, Mr. Copperfield, but how imprudent he has been.
I'm sorry to hear it, on all accounts.
Decidedly so, on all accounts. Miss Agnes is above all. I remember how you said one day that everybody must admire Miss Agnes, and how I thanked you for it. You have forgot that, I've no doubt, Mr. Copperfield.
No, I haven't.
Oh, how glad I am that you have not. To think that you should be the first to kindle these sparks of ambition in my lowly breast and that you have not forgot it.
So, Mr. Wickfield, who is worth 500 of you, or me, has been imprudent, has he?
Oh, how imprudent, Mr. Copperfield. It is a topic that I would not touch upon to any soul but you. Even to you, I can only touch upon it and no more. If anybody else had been in my place during the last few years, by this time he would have had Mr. Wickfield under his thumb. Under his thumb, Master Copperfield. There would have been loss, disgrace, and I don't know what at all. But I am the humble instrument of humbly serving Mr. Wickfield, and he places me upon an eminence I hardly could have hoped to reach. How thankful I should be.
Sure, we both have good reason to be thankful to Mr. Wickfield.
Oh, yes, indeed. Oh, yes, very true, Mark. I should say, Mr. Copperfield. I hope you will not think the worst of my humbleness if I make a little confidence to you, Mr. Copperfield. Will you?
Well, Uriah.
Oh, how pleasant to be called Uriah spontaneously. It's Miss Agnes, Master Copperfield.
Miss Agnes?
Oh, Master Copperfield. With what a pure affection do I love the very ground Miss Agnes walks upon.
You love me?
Oh, I see you are surprised that such an humble person should have such emotions in his breast. But you see, sir, I am emerging from my lowly station. And I rest a good deal of hope on Miss Agnes observing how useful I am to her father and how I smooth the way for him. She's so much attached to her father, Master Copperfield, that I think she may come on his account to be kind to me.
Have you told her about your feelings?
Oh, no, Master Copperfield, I've told no one but you. I'll ask you to have the goodness to keep my secret, sir, and not in general to go against me.
Go against you?
You wouldn't wish to make unpleasantly, I know, sir. You've a friendly heart, Master Copperfield, but having only known me on my humble footing, on my humble list, I should say, you might, unbeknown, go against me with my Agnes.
Your Agnes?
I call her mine, see, Master Copperfield. There's a song that says, I'd crowns resign to call her mine. I hope to do it one of these days. But there's no hurry at present, Master Copperfield. My Agnes is still very young. And Mother and me will have to work our way upwards before it would be quite convenient. So, I shall have time, gradually, to make her familiar with my hopes as opportunities offer. Oh, it is such a relief you can't think to know that you understand our situation, and are certain not to go against me. I'm so much obliged to you, Master Copperfield, and I do apologise for taking up so much of your time. Do please express my humble best wishes to Miss Trotwood when you see her next. Goodbye, Master Copperfield. Oh, your most humble servant, sir.
My dear Treddles, what a pleasant surprise.
Good evening, Copperfield. Look, I hope you don't mind. I've brought some people with me. Or rather, they tagged on. My neighbours in Camden Town.
They say they're old friends of yours. Old friends? Who are they?
Wilkins Micawber, sir, at your service.
Mr. Micawber!
My dear Copperfield, how grand it is to see you again, sir.
Mrs. Micawber!
Dear Mr. Copperfield.
Bigger and more handsome than ever, don't you think, my dear?
Oh, yes, Micawber. So handsome.
Just as fine a host as ever, I'll wager.
Mr. Micawber, the kettle is boiling. Do me the honour, please, of preparing the punch.
It will give me great pleasure, Copperfield.
Traddles, be a good fellow and fetch the bowl from the bedroom. What? With a bowl?
Oh, certainly, Copperfield.
Now then, there's some rum and wine and sugar, and I'm sure we've got some lemons somewhere.
When the worthy Traddles here told me that he was visiting an old school friend by the name of Copperfield, I could scarcely restrain my bounding emotions.
He was quite overwhelmed, Mr. Copperfield, and so was I.
My, this is luxurious. Reminds me of that period when I was myself in a state of celibacy. And Mrs. Micawber had not yet been solicited to plight her faith at the hymeneal altar.
He means solicited by him, Mr. Copperfield. He cannot answer for the others.
My dear, I have no desire to answer for others. I am too well aware that the decrees of fate reserved you for me. One, alas, destined, after protracted struggle, to fall victim to financial difficulties.
Dear Micawber,
I understand your illusion, my love. I regret it, but I can bear it.
Micawber, have I deserved this? I who have never deserted you, I who will never desert you, Micawber.
My love, you will forgive, as I am sure will our old and tried friend Copperfield, the momentary laceration of a wounded spirit.
Of course, yes, of course. Do sit down, Mrs. Micawber.
Oh, thank you both.
Traddles, be a good fellow, pass the kettle.
Ah, the delicate fragrance of lemon peel and rum.
You're looking very well, Mr. Micawber, I must say.
You find us, my dear Copperfield, at present established on what might be designated a small and unassuming scale. Thank you, my dear fellow. But you are aware that I have, during the course of my career, surmounted difficulties and conquered obstacles. You are no stranger to the fact that there have been certain periods in my life when I have found it necessary to pause until certain expected events should turn up. To fall back, as it were, before taking what I presume I will not be accused of presumption in terming a spring. The present is one of those momentous stages in my life, Copperfield. You find me fallen back for a spring, and I have every reason to believe that a vigorous leap will shortly be the result.
A most vigorous leap, Mr. Copperfield.
Oh, that is good news. How extraordinary you should be living in the same house as my good friend Traddles.
Yes.
Extraordinary, yes. And for us, an unspeakable comfort.
Oh, that's very civil of you, Mr. Micawber.
I'm reminded, my dear Copperfield, of those days when you and I were younger and fought our way in the world side by side. I may say for myself and Copperfield, in words which we have sung on several occasions. We twa her on aboot the braes and pooed the gowans fine. I'm not exactly sure what gowans may be, but I have no doubt that Copperfield and myself would have taken a frequent pull at them if it had been feasible.
When was it, Mr. Micawber, that you and Copperfield fought side by side?
Oh, that was some years ago, when Copperfield was in the wine trade and I was exploring the possibilities of Medway coal.
Were those possibilities fruitful, Mr. Micawber?
Alas, no.
But since then, Mr. Micawber has considered devoting his talents to the corn trade, to the brewing business, and to banking. But none were wise enough to avail themselves of Mr. Micawber's rare and considerable abilities.
In short, we are no further advanced than we were before.
I'm sorry to hear it.
Yes, indeed.
Now, I am convinced, and this I have pointed out to Mr. Micawber several times of late, that things cannot be expected to turn up of themselves. We must assist them to turn up. I may be wrong, but I have formed that opinion.
I think you're right, Mrs. Micawber. Absolutely.
Very well, then. So, what do I recommend? Here is Mr. Micawber, with a great variety of qualifications, with great talent.
Oh, please, my love.
No, pray, my dear, allow me to conclude. Here is Mr. Micawber with a very great variety of qualifications, a very great talent, but with no position and no employment. Now, where does the responsibility rest? Clearly, upon society. It appears to me, my dear Mr. Copperfield, my dear Mr. Traddles, that what Mr. Micawber must do is throw down the gauntlet to society and say, in effect, show me who will take that up. Let the party immediately step forward.
But how is that to be done?
By advertising in all the papers. Mr. Micawber must describe himself plainly as so-and-so with such and such qualifications and put it thus. Now employ me on remunerative terms and address postpaid to WM, Post Office, Camden Town.
Certainly a bold idea. It's bold and courageous.
Thank you.
It is Mrs. Micawber's idea. Her conception, her invention.
Thank you, dear.
The fact is, my dear Copperfield, this idea is the leap to which I alluded.
The most vigorous leap, Mr. Copperfield.
The leap for which Mrs. Micawber will be entirely and solely responsible.
You ought to be congratulated, Mr. Micawber, for your wife is no more and no less than a treasure.
Indeed she is.
A treasure beyond price.
Exactly so, Mr. Traddles. Ah. Oh, what excellent punch.
My dear,
Yes.
you should have waited for the toast.
Punch, like time and tide, waits for no man. It is at this moment in high flavour. My love, give me your opinion.
Oh, yes, my dear. It is quite excellent.
Then raise your glasses, gentlemen, and let us drink to Mrs. Micawber, the treasure beyond price.
Mrs. Micawber,
the treasure beyond price.
Dora, my dear, Mr. Copperfield has arrived. This is my daughter, Mr. Copperfield.
How do you do, Miss Spindler?
Mr. Copperfield, Papa has spoken about you.
Oh, hush, my pet.
Perhaps I should apologize for not inviting you before, Copperfield, but my daughter has been in Paris, you see, and I rely on her for all social occasions.
Oh, it's very good of you to invite me at all, sir.
You are going to be a proctor, Mr. Copperfield.
It is my intention, yes.
It's a profession to be cherished.
It is indeed, sir.
The only disagreeable fact... pray sit down, Copperfield. The only disagreeable fact being that we are chiefly employed by solicitors, an inferior race of men, universally looked down upon by all proctors of any pretensions. Very pretty pickings, Copperfield. That's what you'll discover soon enough. We get very pretty pickings.
Oh, do stop talking about the law, Papa. You know I can't understand it.
Forgive me, my dear.
I shall ring for tea before you can say any more. Perhaps you'd care for a walk in the garden, Mr. Copperfield.
Oh, yes. Yes, very much.
Oh, later, Mr. Copperfield. After tea.
Yes, of course. I'm sorry.
The breezes are chilly, Dora. You mustn't catch cold.
I don't think he likes me very much.
Of course she does.
I hope you enjoyed your stay in Paris, Miss Spindler.
Oh, yes, very much. Have you been there?
No.
Oh, I hope you go soon. I'm sure you'd like it. Oh, Jip! Jip, darling! Oh, Jip! Oh, poor Papa. He's so worried I shall catch cold. I don't think it's too cloudy. Do you, Mr. Copperfield?
No, it seems very bright to me. Though it was quite dark earlier on.
Do you mean that as a compliment? Or has the weather really changed?
It's the plain truth, Miss Spindler. There has been a change in my feelings. It seems very bright to me now.
Oh, what a charming thing to say. Wasn't that a charming compliment, my pet? Thank you, Mr. Copperfield. I shall make sure Papa asks you to tea again. Very soon.
I hope he does.
Oh, Mr. Copperfield, you've eaten nothing again. I can't bear to see you so. You're not well, sir.
I'm not hungry, that's all, Mrs. Krupp.
I know what it is. There's a lady in the case.
Mrs. Krupp.
Never say die, sir. If she don't smile upon you, there's many as will. You're a young gentleman was meant to be smiled on, sir, and you must learn your value.
What makes you suppose there's any lady in the case, Mrs. Krupp?
I'm a mother myself. And you don't eat enough, sir.
Oh, is that what you found your supposition on, Mrs. Krupp?
Sir, I've looked after other young gentlemen besides yourself. And when a gentleman is over-careful or under-careful of himself, or brushes his hair too regular or too unregular, or wears boots what are too large or too small, let him go to which extremes he may, there's always a young lady in the case. That gentleman what died here, he fell in love with a barmaid and had his waistcoats taken in directly.
Mrs. Krupp, I must beg of you not to connect the young lady in my case with a barmaid.
Oh, Mr. Copperfield, I'm a mother myself, and I wouldn't be likely to. My advice to you, sir, is to keep a good heart and learn your value. If you was to take up skittle, you might find it divert your mind.
Steerforth, what on earth are you doing here?
The adorable Mrs. Krupp let me in. I hope you don't mind.
I couldn't be more delighted. You've come down from Oxford?
No. No, I've been seafaring for a week or so.
Seafaring?
On my boat at Yarmouth. You'd forgotten about that. Forgotten about the little Emily.
You've been to see the Peggottys?
Indeed I have.
How are they, Steerforth? What news?
Well, the news is mixed, Daisy. I have a letter from your old nurse. Mr. What's-his-name is in a bad way.
Mr. Barkis?
Yes. It seems it's just a question of time. Don't take it too badly, Daisy. A sad business, I know. The sun sets every day. People die every moment. We mustn't be scared by the common lot. We must ride on, Daisy. Rough shod if need be. Smooth shod if that will do. But ride on. Ride on over all the obstacles and win the race.
What race?
The race the one started it.
Steerforth, I must go to Yarmouth.
Not now, surely.
Tomorrow. Perhaps I can comfort Peggotty in some way. It's no great effort to make for such a friend as she has been to me.
Well, go. You can do no harm.
And wouldn't I suppose feel like coming with me?
I've only just come back. It's some weeks since I saw my mother, and it lies heavy on my conscience. It is something to be loved as she loves her prodigal son.
Yes, of course.
Daisy, I want you to promise me something.
What?
If we should ever be separated, you will think of me at my best.
What should separate us?
Make the promise, Daisy. Let us make that bargain.
Very well.
If circumstances should ever part us, you will think of me at my best.
You have no best to me, Steerforth, and no worst. Always equally loved and cherished in my heart.
God bless you, Daisy. And, good night.
Mr. Barkis. Mr. Barkis.
Barkis, my dear, it's Master Davy. Master Davy, who brought us together. Won't you speak to him, Barkis?
He's going out with the tide.
With the tide?
People along the coast can't die, except when the tide's pretty nigh out. Can't be born either, unless it's pretty nigh in. He's going out with the tide.
She's coming to himself. Barkis, my dear.
C.P. Barkis. No better woman anywhere.
Look who's here. It's Master Davy.
Barkis is willing.